Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the British Esports Winter Showdown. I am Jika. I am joined, which way are you, by Black Bloxer. How are you doing today?
Really good. Really excited for this. It was such a blast last time around, and, excited to see some of pretty much the finals of this tournament right now, getting right up until Christmas, so we've had a lot of League of Legends already, and excited to cap this one off with hopefully some good games.
Absolutely, and game number one for us today is no slouch. We're in the semi-finals, and we are seeing, I'm going to butcher some of these names, so I do apologise, Altrincham Grammar School versus Newcastle and Stafford College in the first semi-final. The other semi-final is being played at the same time, ready for us to go straight into the finals after this game. Now, these are the two top teams from Group A, if memory serves correctly. And it was a bit of an interesting start, or a bit of an interesting group, for the fact that these teams either lost no games or only lost one to the other.
Yeah, Altrincham only lost to... nobody, actually. They were the ones who managed to go completely undefeated, beat out every team, and looked really, really strong doing it. Whereas on the other side, Newcastle and Stafford, they only lost one game, and it was to the other team that they're playing today, so really evenly matched, hopefully. Of course, sometimes when you have an undefeated team, they just stomp all the way through, but it'll be interesting to see even if they do win in this first game, going on up against the other twos who are playing the semi-finals right now, if Group A is just more stacked than Group B, because Group B actually had a little bit more wins back and forth.
It's going to be interesting to see, and that is the game happening after this one will be the finals for the Winter Showdown. Now, are we expecting anything spicy? I mean, we've done this song and dance before. We've been here before. We've watched a bit of an interesting game last time we were here. Are we expecting anything like that today?
I think it's still going to be incredibly spicy. Champions that you don't usually see. Obviously, we tend to be casting players who are trying to do this professionally, whereas these are students who are just trying to have a little bit of fun, and you get just a lot closer to whatever pool they want to play. Sure, maybe Jarvan is the best jungler at the moment, and usually is on the ban list, but if you don't play it, then you just don't play it, so I'm expecting to see, a lot of pocket picks, a lot of spicy pickups especially. Hopefully mid lane as well, because, to be honest, this season has been really boring for mid lane. Usually it's top lane where it's like, yeah, it's a wet noodle fight, tank v tank, who cares, we can ignore it for the first 20 minutes, they turn up to a team fight, Ornn presses ult and wins the game. Instead, it's just been mid laners who have been really basic and boring. I'm hoping we get to move away from things like the Syndra, the Azir. That has just kind of been everything. Syndra, Azir, Orianna has just been all of the mid lane champions that we've seen. But Jace has gone top, because top's more interesting.
Okay, well, we shouldn't be too far out of champion select now, so while we wait, what kind of champions do you want to see in place of these control mages?
Give me some assassins, come on! Zed is actually pretty strong at the moment, and everybody loves to see a Zed. If it can really pop off, it's brilliant. The thing is, they're just so risky. The control mages just give you so much utility in terms of team fights. They give you a lot of safety as well. Stepping up can be quite a big risk. So I just want to see something a little bit more interesting. Akali, Zed, something like that. I did manage to see a game the other day that was not those basic control mages. It was instead a Galio and a Malphite in the mid lane. So it was still maybe not high explosivity like I'd been hoping for. Anything different. As long as I don't see an Azir, an Orianna, or a Syndra on my screen, I'm going to be pretty happy.
I had a Malphite, Cho'Gath versus Galio matchup the other day. That was fun. That
also
was
that.
something.
That actually did end up being quite explosive.
You know, you never know. You can never know. But why are playing these assassins so risky? Why are they so easy to punish?
Half of it is just you're stepping up quite far, and because the basic control mages are so good at the moment, they get a lot of pressure in the early game through simply being ranged. A lot of these assassins are waiting for their level 6 to come through to be able to really get on top of control mages and exploit the fact that they are quite a lot squishier. You're waiting for the death mark on Zed, for instance. And so during the early couple of levels, up to level 5, you're just getting pushed in constantly. Your mage gets to sit back, relax, and not have too much of an explosive early game, which is exactly what something like a Syndra wants to do. And if you don't find those early solo kills, which you are putting yourself in a gankable position to go for, then all of a sudden you just give less to a team fight. A Zed who can't one-shot an AD carry has significantly less utility than an Orianna who can shockwave into the backline, than a Syndra who will always be able to one-shot somebody by just pressing R. Azir, the Streamer Shuffle, it's brilliant at just splitting up a team fight, also does a decent amount of damage. These champions both have the damage and the control with their CC to really impact a team fight. Something that you just don't get with an assassin. But at the same time, if an assassin does get themselves that first kill, that second kill, can really get rolling, maybe the jungle gets into that mid lane, that's when you can just pop off and take over an entire game and impact every single lane in a way that control mages really can't.
Absolutely, and we do have some predictions rolling in from chat. Let's go ahead and take a look. It is 98% in favor of Altrincham Grammar School currently. So, people seem pretty happy.
Confident.
Pretty confident that this team are just going to take it. They did beat them once in the round phase of the game, or the bracket phase of the game. So, yeah, I'd say that faith is well placed.
Yeah.
But it depends on who's better on the day. And we won't know until we get into the game. As I say, we shouldn't be too far out of champion select now. Let's move away from the mid lane a little bit now, Bloxer. Are you expecting anything a bit more spicy anywhere else on the map? Maybe something like a Yasuo bot lane, or something like Azir top, something that we have seen the world over?
I don't think so, because again, at this level, you aren't necessarily playing what is that big meta pick, that big counter pick. You tend to play sort of what you like in your lane, what has been a lot more standard in the lanes as well, and so I don't think we're going to see something quite as spicy as an Azir top lane, unless somebody's really been practicing that in solo queue. Yasuo bot lane is not out of the realms of possibility. We've seen that before, and that's always a great time. It can bring so much extra explosivity down into the bot lane, and really unlocks you to play a heavy AP mage in the mid lane and not worry too much about that damage profile. At the same time though, in terms of spicy picks, I think top lane is somewhere you have to look. Sure, we do still end up with the Ornns, the Malphites, even Cassante, but Cassante is getting into the realms of a much more interesting pick, but things like the Renekton, the Camille, the Jace, they have been all over the top lane recently, and with a lot of heavy split pushers, it's been pushing teams macro a lot harder. It used to be, your top laner pushes out, joins a team fight, your team fight, fine. It's not as heavy on macro when you're having to play against something that's split pushing. A Camille in a side lane can take towers incredibly quickly, continuously push through, and you have to know when you can send multiple members to try go get a pick onto the Camille, when you need to pull those members back and just send one person who can try to deal with her. And if you fall too far behind something that can split push heavily and you have to send multiple members at all times, it means that the rest of the team needs to be doing good things on the rest of the map. If your Camille's pushed up to a second turret, if you just leave her, she's just gonna die. You have to have the rest of the map pressing forwards, getting onto a different objective that the other team doesn't want to allow to go through. It just means that you're pushed that little bit harder, and I think it's a really interesting show of skill for a lot of teams this season.
It definitely has been, and we've seen it time and time again, where you just kind of leave this random bruiser off to the side. They can join a fight, they're pretty good if they join a fight, but they're still scary in a side lane. They're still terrifying to try and fight one-on-one. You have to send multiple people, and that can open up a lot of avenues towards objectives. Now, more recently, we've seen a much bigger focus around dragons. That is how the game is being played in the last year or so. Do you think we're going to continue to see that there, or are we going to see more priority thrown towards first and second Herald?
I think first and second Herald tend to be the backup objectives. Oh, whoops, we don't have priority around the Drake. We have a window, let's do the Herald. I think Drakes are going to continue to be that really big focus, and that does put a lot of pressure onto the bot laners, because you need bot lane pressure to be able to make Drake fights work. Same with the mid lane. If you have your lanes shoved back against you, as a jungler, you really can't step up. You can't go and take that objective because you will be collapsed upon a lot quicker. It does also mean that there's been a lot of priority on red side recently, not just for the counter pick, but for that easy access to the Drake pit with how useful the Drakes are at the moment. First and and second, you can give them away, but it's always useful to be able to get that stacking going because it means you can control the tempo of the game. You get to say, hey, we don't want to take this third dragon because it doesn't really matter. It puts us on soul point if we take it, but if we give it away, it's not the end of the world. Whereas the other team is in a much worse spot. They are having to really try to get themselves into those objectives because giving over a soul is pretty much the end of the game. Sure, you can fight back against them. You know, it's not the end of the world if the other team gets a cloud soul, for instance, but still, it gives you a big disadvantage of stats, and when it comes to a big team fight where everybody's trying to execute at the highest level possible, just having higher innate stats gives you such a big advantage.
It also brings that Elder Dragon onto the Rift, right? And that is the big game ending objective. That is the game's way of saying this game has gone on too long and we don't like it.
Yeah.
But we are having a couple of issues on the backside, so we are going to throw to a very quick break. But when we come back, we will have Champ Select ready and waiting for you. Don't go anywhere, the game will start soon. And we are back. We have missed a little bit of champion selects. We do apologize there, but we have got Zyra Khan, Ezreal, Nico all coming out. Now, Zyra Khan is quite an oppressive lane. Reckon you can run us through why that is, Bloxer?
The Rakan just gives you so much. I think it's honestly the better bit of Zyra Rakan. You get to go in with a lot of immunity, actually. You can jump back out very, very easily and head alongside the Jarvan. That level of engage that you can get, put everybody into the Cataclysm, and then you can knock them up with a Rakan, keep them just stunned for so long. And Xayah just gives you so much survivability. Now, Xayah's one weakness is that she is very short-ranged, so an Ezreal is pretty good into that. And if that is a Nico support, the Xayah might struggle a little bit in this lane, especially if the Rakan ever wants to go roam around. Ezreal Yuumi is instead what it's going to be. Again, you just get poked down quite a lot as a Xayah, and Ezreal does give you a lot of survivability against the Rakan, so you might end up with a situation where the bot lane is a bit of a stalemate during the early game, and once we get into team fights, that's where the Xayah Rakan can really pop off.
Absolutely the case. I mean, it's well known that Xayah suffers against poke, and Ezreal Yuumi is definitely one of those lanes that's going to do that to you. Oh, into the second phase of bans now. I think I saw a Syndra ban come through there, so you're going to get your wish at least on that front.
Yeah, we're not going to get a Syndra now, just need to see the Azir and the Orianna banned out. I mean, right now, Rakan Xayah Jarvan is incredibly oppressive as a set of champions. You can deal so much during big team fights especially, whereas Ezreal, Yuumi, Nico, that's a lot more poke based. You're trying to get into your team fights where you've got your opposition down to a decent lack of health, and then you can try to get these team fights. So different styles right now out of the two teams.
Definitely is two very different styles coming through. I did see an Evelynn and a Darius ban drop there. Gonna see what the final ban for second rotation is going to be. The Wukong. So taking off some of these bigger jungle answers, some of the more oppressive picks as well in the likes of the Darius. We'll see what decide to take on R4 here to pair up with this already quite heavy poke-centric composition.
Yeah.
Could do with some kind of early game bridge.
Oh, well, I mean, technically. Alright, Rengar being locked in, that's incredibly aggressive as a jungler. I do like to see it. It means that it's likely going to be that Nico into the mid lane, unless we get some Nico top, maybe even some Rengar top, if there's some real shenanigans going on. By the way, just in case anybody was wondering, it is AGSB on the left-hand side of your screen. On the blue side, picking right now, needing a top laner and a mid laner. I knew. Oh, go on. I knew it. Orianna, it's brilliant in this composition. I mean, there's brilliant ball delivery system for the shockwave. If you get people into that baby cage from the Jarvan, means landing the shockwave is incredibly good. The Orianna was 100% the right pick right now, and it's part of the reason why Orianna is so strong. She works so well with a lot of the strongest pickups at the moment. So what this final pickup will be, it's going to be a top laner. It will be blind. You don't know what you're into set. Again, pretty good at team fighting, can give you a bit of split push potential as well, and even in the 1v1 can hold his own, so I think it rounds out this composition quite nicely. Now, Set does struggle a little bit into range matchups or into other champions that could just sit there and auto-attack him back. It would be a very aggressive set of champions you'd have to take into the set to really do that, though, something like an Aurelia, perhaps. Instead, you can just handshake that. Going to be the Malphite pickup, and Malphite does also make Xayah's health pretty risky. You know, Xayah has to blow that ultimate pretty much every time that the Malphite is on the screen, and that does leave her available and open to a lot of other sources of damage.
Did see a dip from the lobby there. Not sure if there's any proxy picks coming through. There is. Set was a placeholder. Set was meant to be Aatrox. Joys of drafting in clients. So that changes this matchup up just a little bit.
Yes. Yes, it does. So the Aatrox into the Malphite. Malphite's really good at just absorbing pressure. He gets to just sit into these kind of matchups and say, yeah, fine. If you play the Aatrox well, though, you can still get solo kills onto a Malphite. Malphite is really just trying to get to that level 6 point and then join in with team fights. Whereas Aatrox wants to get his individual lane ahead. Alongside a Jarvan, I love this duo. Jarvan is a champion where if you don't see multiple ganks during the early stages of the game, you're not playing the champion right. What is it the Brackish says? If you don't have 2 ganks within the first 5 minutes, you're not actually playing the champion. So let's see how often we're going to get ganks. I do see a little bit of why, potentially, Altrincham is the strongest team right now, because actually, when I said pocket picks, this is a very standard draft. This is a high-level draft that we are seeing right now. All of the best picks in each of the lanes, whereas it's very much what I'm expecting the members of Newcastle and Stafford to want to play. Rengar, we've not seen him in competitive in forever. Actually, the last time I remember a Rengar in competitive was in that brief period 2 years ago where Rengar was a top lane pick as a bit of a counter. So that's out of left field, but it could add in a little bit of a wrinkle of how much does Altrincham know how to play against things like a Rengar.
Absolutely does, and as you mentioned, this is definitely a more standard draft than we were expecting to see. But it's got everything you need. You've got a bridge in Aatrox. If you can get this Aatrox to lead with the Jarvan, you're bridging your mid to late game, which allows your Xayah and your Orianna to come online. They spike it around the 2-3 item point, which you're looking at about 20 minutes into the game before they really come online. You're looking at that mid-game set, and when they do come online, they're going to be able to match their lane counterparts quite effectively. Problem is, Ezreal also comes online around that same point. Neeko is online pretty early, is online from level 6. She's more of a level scaler than a gold scaler. But generally speaking, you're going to match quite effectively. So it's going to be interesting to see how Altrincham can play out this draft in a not so ideal circumstance, because they are countered in a couple of different ways.
Yeah, it's been a decent set of counter picks. Ezreal Yuumi is something I haven't seen in a little while. I've seen a lot of Ezreal, but not paired up with enchanters. To be honest, most enchanters have fallen off of the map recently. It's just been engage supports recently, which has been really enjoyable to watch, but you know, it's good to see a little bit more variation in the meta coming through. Ezreal Yuumi is brilliant in that you just get to sit there and survive. Ezreal is always good at being able to just absorb pressure. He can farm from so far away from those mystic shots, and Yuumi can just sit on top of him and use that arcane shift as effectively as well. The only difference is, Ezreal is often picked with an engage support, because the engage support doesn't care about the Ezreal lane, wants to go roam around the rest of the map and get involved elsewhere. But that's not really the case with this matchup. This is a matchup where you're looking to sit in that lane, which does potentially unlock for the Rakan to just go elsewhere.
And you're also relying quite heavily on Neeko and Rengar to rotate down at the same time to allow Rengar to get those Bone Tooth Necklace stacks. Ezreal Yuumi, not a very aggressive lane, not really able to force a fight. So unless Rengar is right there, pixel perfect, when Xayah Rakan tried to force a fight, there's no real way for the Rengar to get these Bone Tooth Necklace stacks early on without sacrificing a lot more than
you're gonna have to force. Yeah. Force quite heavily. Although, once you do hit that level 6, it becomes a little bit easier. You've got the stuns from the final chapter from the Yuumi. Ezreal just deals a lot more damage. And then you've also potentially got a Neeko who you can roam down. Orianna can roam, but it's not her favourite thing to do. She'd much rather just sit in that lane and then join into the big skirmishes. Whereas Neeko, much happier to roam around, can get a little bit tricksy, turning into potential minions, wards, blast cones, whatever she wants to do. And if you can get the Neeko into the bot lane, there's your CC. There is your big overall CC with the Pot Blossom level 6 that can lock down that entire lane and then potentially get you those ganks. You could also look for individual ganks in the mid lane too. And so, as always, it's down to the junglers. What can the junglers get done? You want to see as much aggression out of a Rengar as possible. Rengar doesn't give you that much in terms of pure usefulness, utility during team fights. If he's behind, he can deal a bit of damage, but again, it's like I was saying with the mid lane assassins. If you can't blow somebody up, you don't really give that much to your team, whereas a Jarvan is always going to be useful. He should be a lot tankier. It'll be interesting to see if it's going to be full tank or Gore Drinker build, but either way, you still give a lot of knockups, and more importantly than anything, alongside an Orianna, is just that Cataclysm. If you get 2-3 members inside of the Cataclysm, you have the ball on top of you or on top of the Rakan, you can put people in a bounce house and take them out very easily, and your Xayah doesn't even necessarily need to step up within range where she's going to be a little bit vulnerable.
And even if she is, that Featherstorm is one nasty disengage tool. The second this Rengar comes anywhere close, the feathers go up, they fly, and the Rengar is stuck with half of a health bar shredded because Blade Caller is funny. Although,
that only works once within a team fight. and then there's a Malphite. So who do you pick? If the Malphite goes in first, you blow that ultimate. If you get knocked up by that unstoppable force, you're probably dead. If you blow the ultimate and then the Rengar jumps on top of you, you might also potentially be dead. So you have to play this one carefully. Luckily, with the Rakan alongside, that does just give you a lot of extra survivability because Rakan can be so good at helping out with the disengage. But if you don't have yourself that Featherstorm and the Flash, that's the point at which this Xayah does become a really juicy target, potentially.
We could even see the funny Rengar ultimate interrupt, where Rakan just grand entrances halfway between the Xayah and the Rengar comes flying and is caught midair.
Yeah,
That's
that
always
would be
fun
hilarious
to watch. I think in this game you definitely prefer dropping the Featherstorm for the Rengar ultimate rather than for the Malphite ultimate. Because if you can stop the Rengar killing you and shred his health bar, you then just position parallel or perpendicular to where your Orianna is, and you can't both be caught. So there's always going to have to pick your target effectively, and that's a lot harder to do as a Malphite, especially if there's a Jarvan on your backline cataclysming the rest of your team, even if one of them can escape with Arcane Shift.
So what I'm hearing from both teams is do not stand on top of yourselves. Do not clump up, because if either team clumps up, that's the point at which these big AoE ultimates just come through and can wreck people. The Yuumi also, maybe on the Ezreal, is good for just sitting back, relaxing during the early game, but then you get to put it onto things like the Rengar, and that's where you really can get into a bit of a sticky situation, because Rengar can just do so much damage. But I do feel like the onus is entirely on Newcastle and Sheffield to get things going. If this composition falls behind, it's in a much worse spot than I think the Altrincham one is. Altrincham has a better place to actually just teamfight effectively.
Yeah, Newcastle and Stafford do have to show some real mastery here, but we are finally on to the Rift for game number 1 of Altrincham Grammar School versus Newcastle and Stafford College.
Alrighty. Whoever wins this one goes on to the finals, which is going to be a really huge matchup between the top teams from Group A and Group B. This is our Group A matchup. Undefeated Altrincham Grammar. Let's see if they can keep that streak alive or if they are finally going to lose out on a game. Standard 5-point stances, couple of wards being placed down in that topside river, interestingly, just to potentially stop any late invades, although it doesn't look like Harold Knight is particularly interested in doing that, just wants to start standard over on his blue buff and work his way towards the top lane. When you've got an Aatrox up there, that's exactly right. You want to get the Aatrox going as quickly as possible, because Aatrox, more so than a Zyra Khan, only needs one kill to be able to snowball a lane. Zyra Khan might need a little bit more help versus a Yuumi and an Ezreal in order to get kills, but you're happy to just leave them alone to do their thing. They shouldn't get 100 to 0'd by an Ezreal and a Yuumi, so you can leave them be, try to make your way up towards the top side of the map instead, where it is the complete opposite. Rengar actually going to be making his way towards the bottom lane.
Definitely looking to get those Bone Tooth Necklace stacks early, because this is going to be the hardest lane to get them from. Makes a lot of sense. Now, can you talk us through what the first 5 minutes of the game is like to look like in your mind?
So I'm expecting full clears, really, out of both of these junglers. It would be possibly better to just try to 3-camp to gank, and there is a potential for that, actually. Harold Knight is going to skip out onto his Krugs, and yeah, he's going to skip his... Yeah, he is. He's going to skip his chickens as well, so he is going to be going for a 3-camp to gank. This is exactly right. I don't expect it usually, just because a lot of players just don't tend to know how effective it can be to just try to get yourself into that top lane as quickly as possible. But versus an Aatrox, it's exactly right. Get into that top lane, try to get yourself an early kill. It is going to be a full clear out of Super Server though, so he's just going to make his way towards the bottom lane, potentially try to get a gank, get that bottom lane Scuttle Crab if not, and then just take a reset, get back out onto the map, probably with a Serrated Dirk, and be in a pretty good spot. It's looking like Super Server potentially wants to go for an invade right here. I think both of those wards had already expired, so you don't get to see that he's invaded, but the blue buff is already gone because of the interesting pathing right here out of Harold Knight.
It is very interesting pathing. It's a standard 3-camp to top gank from what I can understand. There is your level 3, so now you look to go and get this Aatrox a really early lead.
Up into the top lane goes Harold Knight. Really effective ganks come from the Jarvan this early.
There is the knock-up, and the Infernal Chains go down. Dark and Blade knock-up comes in. The Asian buff can only but run for now. As there
One
should
more.
be First Blood. Trying to give it over to Riven. There it is.
There we
First
go.
Blood going across to Riven. Very creative and showing a good understanding of strong pathing and early ganking from Harold Kite here.
Yeah, exactly onto the correct lane. Great pathing to get you there. Also going to get this top lane Scuttle Crab, and was able to take away that blue buff that it looked like Super Server really wanted to get onto and try to steal away. It delayed the early clear out of him as well. So things just, working out very well for Outracham, and they're showing us why they are this top seeded team coming into the playoffs. Now you've already got a kill into the Aatrox. It's not going to be a massive advantage for the Aatrox right now, simply because he's not been able to go back to base yet, hasn't been able to spend that gold, but still, the gold lead is going to be significant with First Blood worth 400 gold, and an also 10 CS lead. You're just in a really strong position to be able to bully out onto this top lane. Now the rest of the lanes just need to be careful to not give over kills to this Rengar, because if you can get through this early game without the Rengar getting any kills, it just puts you in such a nice spot where the Rengar doesn't give you too much utility, and you don't have to worry about him too much 100-0ing one of your carries after he got himself a couple of early kills. Potential regank top lane. There is still Flash on Asian buff.
There is, and the Infernal Chains land again. The Flash already coming down is just going to take that for now. But we could see another regank off the back of that. Not having Flash in this lane leaves you extremely vulnerable to the Flag and Drag into Dark and Blade combo.
It's just so much CC that you can put down, and it makes it so difficult as a Malphite to play. Malphite usually is such a good champion at being able to just absorb pressure, but it doesn't work out that way, not when you've got a Jarvan. Also, that was 2 ganks from the Jarvan pre-level 6, looking for a third, potentially mid lane, with quite a pushed up Momo God. Instead, just going to back off, continue with this clear. Early on, nothing too much explosive has happened beyond that top lane gank, but the CS leads are beginning to show through already.
Certainly are,
hang on.
as another fight in the top lane leads Asian buff going very, very low. Flash still available for Riven. Could look for a little bit of a solo kill here. Gonna have to see how it goes. Oh, but there is a Rengar in the bush as Riven manages to take one. And now EONE Super Server running Riven down will lose their life. It is a 1-for-1 in the long term, but it allows for AGSB to go for first strike.
Good response right here. Get straight onto this buff, try to pick it up for yourselves, and respond to the fact that you have seen, a lot of pressure top lane. You don't have to worry too much about getting a gank onto you or getting countered onto this Drake. So, good response right here out of NSGC, but still, I think the early game has gone incredibly well out of AGSB. They're going to be really happy with the way that this one has worked out so far. And 2 kills onto the Aatrox. There was also 2 kills pre-basing. So you're in an incredibly strong position, up by a huge amount of CS, up by a couple of kill gold as well. Still, the Rengar did get that early kill. Is going to come back onto the map with that serrated Dirk. And I think hasn't actually based since that early gank. So might have even more items to show for it soon enough, which puts you in a really strong position as the Rengar.
Absolutely does. That is the first stack plus the serrated Dark, as you mentioned. And now we just play the waiting game. We see what the next portion of the game is. And, I mean, top lane, this is going to be the name of the game for a long, long time now.
Yeah, everything seems to be nothing. There's nothing too explosive. Again, it's just this top lane really that's, I mean, falling to pieces is probably a kind enough way of putting it. Riven once again gonna chunk out Asian buff to a really just sliver of HP. Now that the level 6s have come through, Asian buff is gonna be in a little bit of a safer position. You can always use that unstoppable force to just get away from the Aatrox, but that doesn't mean that you're not continuing to concede pressure. Engage bot lane, doesn't really land. Things just continue on.
That they do, and here is another solo kill in the top lane, allowing Riven that little bit of reprieve. And now EONE Super Server down in the bottom lane. Harold Kite running. Nothing going to come of it for now. It was a good disengage. They read it coming with the ult coming through. The on the hunt really giving itself away there. allowing for AGSP's bot lane to get out unscathed.
So every other lane right now is pretty even. There is a decent CS lead right here for Jin over with it, but they're not massive problems. Top lane, though, is a massive problem. You said it was the bridge, which basically means that you have a good late-game team-fighting composition, but you need something to get you to that point. If you have just late-game scaling on every champion, you never get there, really. You end up all the way into the late game, and nothing really has come of it. So you need to have some player that you can play around, a winning lane for your jungler to try to gank onto, to try to give some power to, and to get themselves ahead as well. Top lane is exactly that, and with the Aatrox in such a strong position right now, it's going to take a lot to be able to shut him down. Aatrox, through the nature of his ultimate, can survive for an incredibly long time, even when being ganked onto by multiple people. So if you can just give him a little bit of extra pressure right now, as Outracham, you can keep yourself in this just strong position that they put themselves in. 2,000 gold ahead already.
It is a very strong position to find themselves in. As Harold Kite looking towards this top lane again. Flash still not up for Asian buff, and it's just going to walk straight into the Jarvan, into the Flag and Drag, into the Darking Blade, into the Infernal Chains. It's just another kill.
Clean.
The Unstoppable Force doesn't take them over the wall, and now Riven running, looking, uncertain as to what they want to do. It was a little bit scuffed, but it worked out in the end as Asian buff escapes with their life.
Just going to be able to survive on that one, but it is, I mean, incredibly close to being another kill going over. It would have been the fourth. How am I going in amongst 3 members?
Does manage to find the rank out. The Cataclysm comes down, and a good flash will take them to safety. That is the World Ender and Cataclysm used in that exchange.
But the Momo God and EUNE Superstar both blowing their flashes to get away in that situation. It's going to turn right into a Rift Herald as well, in full vision, but I don't think that anybody on Outracham really cares right now. They're going to be perfectly happy to just pick this one up in full vision. You can't step up right now to this Aatrox. You saw there was plenty of aggression coming through from EUNE Super Server. He was happy to step up until the Aatrox arrived, and at that point everybody flashes out over the back of Baron Pits, uses ultimates to run away into Fog of War and just get themselves out of dodge because this Aatrox is in such a strong position. We are 10 minutes into the game. We're not going to see anything too much explosive go on until this next Drake comes up, which should be in under a minute's time. The first one did already go over to Outracham as well, so you know they're in a good position to be able to take another one and try to keep Drake stacking, but you're not exactly in your strong point down in this bot lane. This bot lane is actually pretty even overall. It's top lane where you can really play around, where you can just take your Rift Herald on full vision, as we see another engage out of Riven. And Asian Buff just uses a huge chunk of HP, has gone straight towards that Bramble Vest, so it's going to be stopping a good amount of the healing, but they aren't doing any damage really to Riven, so it's not like the healing is even the bit that matters.
It is the sheer amount of damage coming through, and it's proving to be a real thorn on the side. Wavir, though, moving up towards this mid lane, looking to get priority for this dragon. As we start to see members file into the river. Kite, losing a lot of health, has to flag and drag away. There comes the final chapter out of Jesse as well. Doesn't quite lead to a kill, but it does mean that this dragon likely is going to be conceded.
Hey, you have to back off. You are going to have your jungler just have to leave. Harold Knight goes back to bases. Asian Buff is just going to get taken out right here. Yeah, that's going to be another solo kill, and turret plating also going to be falling. And unfortunately, nobody on Newcastle and Stafford was able to recognize their potential window to take onto this Drake. The reset does come through out of Harold Knight. He's going to be able to get back, try to get this Drake again, and is going to find EUNE Super Server in his jungle.
Is looking to the check-ins, and I'm getting flashbacks to our last series on British Esports. It was a very similar story of the top lane is just kind of being stomped, for lack of a better term. We'll see if Newcastle and Stafford can pull it back anywhere else on the map. As we say, UNE Super Server is sitting on that first stack of Bone Tooth Necklace, and they are posturing aggressively for this dragon. We could see the first real 4v4 of the game come forwards very soon.
Yeah, indeed, and that's going to be a point at which... Oh, if the Pop Blossom hits, it does!
Only hits onto Harold Kite, and there's the shockwave onto all 3 members, saving the jungler's life.
That's a huge shockwave. Later on into the game, that many people
Sebula
thought in the shockwave would be huge.
Caught
Just
almost
dead.
as Super Server goes down to the Cataclysm,
TP
and
in.
now Momo with her having to run. Riven has TP'd to this fight. Jin trying to get everything they can done. And now, just going to be a case of running away. This Aatrox is too strong to even consider fighting. The TP is down, which is going to give Asian a little bit of a reprieve. Some time to take some tower plates, but it is 2 dragons, 5 kills, and a Herald going the way of Altrution.
Yeah, it's huge right here, and in a more even game state, potentially, that works out for EUNE Super Server leaping into the backline, but the dissuasion from fighting had already come through out of Sebula with a huge shockwave landing onto every available member. The Yubi would have been caught out, but, you know, can't really land anything onto her. Rift Herald goes down into the spot lane as well, and just continues to balloon this gold lead. It's now sat at about 4,000 between the teams, and there's no real lane where you've got that priority, where you're in a good position to try to find individual kills. The only person potentially who can find any is EUNE Super Server, but it's pretty difficult to get onto most of these champions. I think the only real available target actually is this Orianna. She's the only one without inbuilt disengage and is a pretty squishy champion overall. So if you could get on top of her, that is a potential solo kill, but has always been playing far back, has now gone up into the top lane to just continue playing up against Asian buff, as you want to spread this Riven power across the rest of the map.
And we're seeing that Riven very, very happy to sit in lane against Momo God. The shockwave comes through onto Asian buff so low. Sebula decided to continue chasing that forward. There could have been a kill come out of it. Now, EUNE Super Server being run down as Sebula has caught them in the river. But the On The Hunt will keep them safe for now. Caught by the Scry's Bloom, but nobody can get in range. That movement speed steroid just a little bit too big.
It's incredibly fast. You just get away. You also go invisible once you're outside of a certain range as well. So yeah, going to be able to survive right here. Has done a pretty good job in the early game. Has already got themselves that Eclipse completed. So also in a pretty strong position to be able to 100-0 someone. But it's a really, really bad sign right now for Newcastle and Stafford that your top laner was also nearly solo killed by the mid laner, who hasn't been looking that strong. Not even completed a first item. Speaking of first items, the Gore Drinker and 2 longswords plus fully completed boots for Riven is just insanely strong. But we are seeing first items coming through for a couple of different members. It is going to be the Gore Drinker onto this Jarvan as well. So not going full tank, also wants to be contributing to the damage profile of the team. Now, Altrution, they're just in such a strong position, and it feels like they're just not letting up. Every single lane is doing their part to keep them ahead, put them in a better and better place, as another one of those Darkin Blades does miss, so Riven not going to be able to get another solo kill, at least for a couple of seconds, but with some friends, that
the
should
flash!
be a kill.
The smite from Harold will take him down. Momo's there to dissuade any tower taking chances, but just a quick pivot. We're opting to go for the lethality build this game.
Yeah, actually, that's interesting. That's not what you usually see now, is it?
No, Ezreal more recently has quite enjoyed the Trinity Force. It allows you to play these fights out longer and your damage is more consistent. It's not so burst-centric. Going for the Essence Reaver suggests we're going for this lethality build, which means cutting through Riven and Harold is going to be so difficult after a point, because they're just going to have too many resistances and too much health for you to really be able to do much against us. Now, we're very jumping aggressively forward onto Jin as EUNE Super Server as well. The Featherstorm comes out, the flash comes through. There's no Blade Caller to be found just yet. Jin managing to keep their life, having to blow both summoners and the ultimate to stay alive in turn for EUNE Super Server's flash.
It's a good play right there. Newcastle and Stafford, they're going to be pretty happy with that one. It's just getting more tools away from Jin, away from this just incredibly strong Xayah. Once you've got that first item completed, sure, you're waiting on a second item to really come online, but you're still in a pretty good position. Expecting it to probably be the quick plays, as Sebula should just go down right here.
Sebula caught out by 2 members. The shockwave not quite enough. Momo will get on the board with their first kill of the game and a second stack on the Bone Tooth necklace for the Rengar.
Yeah, the Rengar beginning to come online right here. Once you've got that Eclipse completed, that's the point at which you really can burst somebody out 100-0. And like we said, Nico is just strong once you have that level 6 Pop Blossom is used. Zitsu Gonna have to run away right here. Is gonna be able to get underneath the turret. And like we said, if you are looking to potentially burst somebody out, the Orianna is the champion you want to be trying to get on top of. Now without a flash, as Harold
has been found, and this could be the third stack, but Mazatutu here to dissuade with that quickness. Will push NSCG off for now.
Alrighty, so about 18 minutes into the game, we've got a Baron spawning pretty soon, a Drake in just a couple of seconds as well. This would be a third Drake. Herald is going to go down into the mid lane. This could turn into a big fight right here, depending on what Newcastle and Stafford want to do. They have to respond to the Rift Herald, but gives plenty of time for Outrichum to move down towards this Drake or into the jungle to look for a pick to then make the Drake a bit easier.
Will indeed make it easier, but it looks like AGSB just opting to go for the objective. We're really the only person really there to try and fight this, and the True Shot Barrage is down. It is going to be Soul point for AGSB, and a Chemtech Soul with this team, with this Aatrox who is already 2 items and so insanely strong, is not what you want to be fighting.
No, it really isn't, as things just feel a little bit like they're going from bad to worse right now. This is a best of 1. Remember, the winner of this is going to be going on to those finals in just, well, potentially just 20-30 minutes time. So you really want to win out onto this one. Outrichum, they haven't lost a single game so far, so they were definitely the favourites coming into this game. But you have to remember that the power is definitely concentrated in just a couple of lanes. If we could have a look at the gold, we would likely be able to see that this Aatrox has got most of the gold lead. He's up by almost, 60 CS? Plus 4 kills and an assist. In case you don't know, that's huge. You can see it really reflected in the items. No completed item for the Malphite, whereas 2 fully completed items are on top of this Aatrox. Just such a strong position. But the rest of the lanes don't have that much of a lead for themselves. Mid lane especially, with a kill and a CS lead on the Momo God, that's really somebody you can look to play around. EUNE and Server and the Momo God are going to be the players that really need to step up right now, as the Baron is started 20 minutes into the game, so early, but with the lead that they have, you can do this as Outrichum.
You can. This is very, very brave. Just have to see how this plays for them. Going down, about 8,000 health left, and they can see that a fight is starting. There is on the hunt. Riven currently the target as NSCG retain full control. Riven, the shockwave lands onto 2. This doesn't dissuade the fight entirely, as Mazatutu is caught by EUNE Super Server. There comes the root, and now it is 1 kill down, and the Pop Blossom lands on to 3! As Sebula falls as well. Harold and Riven, the other ones left, trying to do anything, and there goes Harold. Riven catch a 4-man Darkin Blade, but you can only do so much, as it's 3 kills for NSCG. And the only consolation for AGSB is a tower in the mid lane, courtesy of Jin.
It was another big Orianna ult that nobody really responded to. Sebula has now hit a couple of those just as disengaged potentials, and we just said it, Momo God needed to be that main carry, and they found so many members on the Pot Blossom. Pot Blossom is such an insanely strong ultimate. You could stun everybody up, deal a ton of damage, and the follow-up was really there. I like it. I mean, we spoke so much about how it was all about Outrichum's wombo combo potential, but I think we're ignoring the fact that Newcastle and Stafford do also have that potential and really showed it right there.
Absolutely did, showing just how strong this can be if the Nico can get into the center of everybody. Didn't even have to use the flash to do it, which means that can happen again in this next fight, which we'll like to see around the Dragon in 2 minutes time. What do you want to see from these teams before then?
Right now, Outrichum, they just need to continue pushing through the lanes that are strong. They've taken all of the outer turrets, and so pushing onto these inner turrets is going to be pretty tricky. Just try to get your CS, continue going a couple more items, put yourself in an even stronger position to be able to fight. You've now got a 2-item Xayah. With those quick blades completed, you're in just such a strong position as Jin. And then once you get to those team fights, play them just with a little bit more caution. Make sure that Momo doesn't get taken out. As Newcastle and Stafford, you've kind of done everything that you needed to do. You've clawed your way back into this game. Sure, you're still down by about 2,000 gold, but just make sure you don't get caught out in these side lanes and wait for team fights to come around, because that has clearly been one of the strongest points and continue to look for picks with this Rengar. If you can get onto this Orianna again, potentially, or onto this Xayah, because this Xayah has got Flash, Ghost, and Ult back up. I don't expect for you to be able to kill them, but if you any Super Server can take those abilities away, that makes them incredibly squishy for the next potential team fight.
Absolutely does, as looking at the item coming out of Avira, we could see a Navori Quick Blade instead of the lethality variant here, so it could be a more of a crit-centric build coming out. As now Sebula up against Asian Buff is doing a good chunk of damage. That Luden's really starting to do some work. And there comes the Shockwave, and it could just be a solo kill. The flash doesn't quite go through, and Sebula will pick up that, but in the meantime, Mazatutu will fall to EONE Super Server. So while one play is happening on one side of the map, another is happening on the other. That is your Malphite for your Rakan, with Dragon coming up in 17 seconds.
Now, the Malphite gives you a big ulti, but you have also now used a big ulti with it as well. Gonna use that, sorry, not with it. Jesse gonna use that big ulti with the Lost Chapter going down, but you did also use that Shockwave from Sebula. Now, we've seen the Shockwave not really land in big teamfight situations, being used more as a distance gauge tool, but it's still a big tool that you are now missing out on. Well, to watch the Momo God. If they're able to get in with a big ultimate, it's huge, but they're caught out right now. Forced to flash, the TP coming in.
We've got Asian Buff joining this fight, the first fight they have joined with Via, now caught by Riven, and there comes the Unstoppable Force, lands onto one, and she's already dead! The Pop Blossom catches two, and the Cataclysm is only just so much. Harold will fall, Momo is going to go down to Riven, and hang on, this fight could just turn it to reverse. The 3 UNE Super Server's dead, Wavia is dead, and Jesse is the only one left standing. It is double kill City in this game. AGSV come out on top in a 5-4-2.
Oh, it looked like it was going so well for Newcastle and Stafford right there. But the ultimates didn't land onto as many members as you were hoping for. The Pop Blossom actually only lands onto one, as much as it looked like it was going to be huge. And there was just some odd play out of Wivir where they were stepping up a little bit too aggressively, having to blow a lot of defensive cooldowns rather than being in a position to play offensively. And Riven managed to actually get involved in a teamfight in the middle of a teamfight as well, where Aatrox is absolutely in his happy place, landing those knockups with the Darkened Blade again and again, and just healing for so much. A huge fight is going to give Soul over as well to Alwyncham, and they're going to be very happy with the way that one is going. After a little bit of a wobble in the top side, they're going to be able to pull this one back nice and easy.
The Baron is now in their sights as well, it would seem. Asian stepping forwards, looking to get a bit of vision down. It's going to be immediately cleared though, as there is 2 people up in this top side for NSCG. Slowly but surely, the call is going to be made. I hope. I'm hyping it up for no reason. And there it is. The Baron has been started up by Altrisham. Squires is going to catch. So EONE Super 7 knows this is going on, but Momo is caught in the bot lane against Riven. 3 items now. Very scary on this Aatrox. Wavia, Asian Buff, and EONE Super Server all up towards this Baron. 7,000 health and going lower. That's a 2-2. Not going to take too much damage. And the TP is coming in from Momo God and Riven. Riven actually on a massive flank here. As the fight starts, Riven already losing their health. Of course, he's already dead. So Wavia will shut down the Aatrox, and Jhin will live with the Featherstorm for now as the root comes down onto Asian Buff, and this fight will continue to play forwards. Stopwatch coming out of Sebula. Harold looking for something. Finds the knock up onto Asian Buff. EONE Super 7. The Cataclysm now dodges 2, and he's caught out of a bush. There's no way to jump. And there it is onto Harold, but it's 2 quick kills. It's a 2-for-1, still favouring Altrisham. And what looked so good, catching Riven on the flank, is just going to give them Baron for free.
Oh, you think when you manage to take out the Aatrox that you continue to play this fight, but again, the Pop Blossom doesn't land onto as many members as we saw in that crucial fight earlier on in the game. Baron is just going to go down right here. You have no spike to take it away. It would be a miracle steal out of an Ezreal right now. Not going to happen. Right now, Altrisham, they're up by a huge amount of gold, 5,000. They've got themselves the Baron buff as well, and that's what they really needed to be able to crack onto these inner turrets. Xayah, Orianna, and Aatrox are all incredibly low-ranged carries, and there's plenty of wave clear that you had on Newcastle and Stafford to try to stop that push from coming through. It does mean that with this Baron buff, with those Baron empowered cannon minions, these inner turrets are going to be well within the sights of Altrincham, and they can push themselves at least up to the base with this first Baron, if not further if you can find yourself a fight.
Finding that fight is much easier said than done, and you're on the clock 3 minutes until this Elder Dragon spawns, and that could spell the end of the game. Death timers might not be just long enough, but you can't keep throwing yourselves into the team with this buff, because it will lose you the game. We'll have to see as that comes forward, but for now, pushing 2 different lanes with this Baron buff in a 4-1 formation. UNE Super Server looking for some kind of flank onto someone, as Wavir just throwing out the poke. Agent buff now on the side, looking for an unstoppable force as the entirety of AGSB starts to move towards Riven in the bot lane. Moving out of vision, moving into fog, allowing for so much pressure and time to be absorbed by this mid lane. As Riven is just wailing on this mid lane tower, it will fall. The only outer towers left standing in mid and top, inner towers, sorry, should not be long for this world.
No, they should be taken down relatively quickly, but I like the control right here, not stepping up too far. Now, it looks pretty dire for Newcastle and Stafford, and we can't say that it isn't, but whenever you have the potential of an Elder coming up, there's always a way to get back into the game, because if you can steal that away, and we have seen some relatively effective team fighting out of Newcastle and Stafford, then you can get yourself back into a game very easily. Once you manage to pick up that buff, you can execute enemies below a certain health threshold, and it makes team fighting incredibly easy. If you lose a team fight with Elder buff, then unfortunately the game just wasn't meant for you in that situation. So you can try, you have to try to steal this one away, but you still have to have a base up and available to be able to play through that kind of thing. We see Riven goes towards the bot side, the rest of the team pushes through mid, able to get the bot lane turret. Now Riven goes towards the top side, the rest of the team also going to push towards top lane. The only difference is Harold Knight actually going to go bot lane potentially to catch this push out of the Momo God, or just to clear a couple of camps. There isn't too much pushing actually coming out of the rest of Altrincham, and that does leave Riven vulnerable right now to a potential engage. Still, with that Elder coming up in just a minute's time, that has to be the main focus.
Certainly is, because Riven doesn't have that Baron buff either, so you are looking at the rest of AGSB to try and find some kind of push with this, but 40 seconds on the clock. We see everybody starting to move towards this bot side river. UNE Super Server just doing some camps, trying to make sure that the pressure stays up. Momogo looking, thinking, maybe I can find a way, but is on vision. Setup is good.
Riven's on the way down.
That ensues will be interesting. Riven is indeed on the way down. Agent buff does have the teleport, and if you can find a flank with that unstoppable force, you can win your team at the fight. The shockwave goes wide before the fight even starts. 5 seconds on the Elder Dragon.
That's unfortunate. You really don't want to have that one down.
It's almost
Luckily,
back up, though.
it's on a very, very short cooldown. Yep, indeed. And when you've got yourself the Ludens and that Zhonya's, you still deal a decent amount of damage. Everybody is around for this team fight. No teleport flanks. It's just going to be a straight up 5v5. It's all about who hits those wombo combos first. Oriana ult about a quarter, 3/4 of the way back. If you can stall this one out for long enough to get that Oriana ult back, then you're in a perfectly good position as Altrincham to try to get this buff and end out the game.
Jin doing a very good job of forcing Wavir back into the mid lane, forcing Wavir to find this pressure that is being thrown down. It allows for control to go back to Altrincham for this river. And the Oriana, the shockwave, it's back.
Okay, where do you put it?
Fight. Looking for an angle, looking for anything. Altrincham moving aggressively into the enemy jungle here. Riven dashing forward with the Umbral dash there. Harold going forward, finds the Cataclysm. The shockwave goes wide with the Arcane Shift out. And now they're caught between a Nico and an Ezreal. The Pop Blossom comes out, only lands onto one. As the Featherstorm is huge for UNE Super Server jumping in. And now Momo God is already dead, but it's traded for Jin on the backside. That is unstoppable force used as well. It's a 4 versus 2 on the backside of this fight. Agent buff going to be the next on the list of people to fall. Sebula is dominating in this game. It is a 3 versus 4 for this Elder Dragon. Wavir doing everything they can, but so much damage coming out. The flash has to be used and it's dead. Harold will secure that one. Jesse running for the hills. The blast cone will work. EUNE Super Server sat on a flank, hoping to get a jump into this
No
pit,
vision.
trying to get something. There is no vision. There is no way. Sebula has vision of EUNE Super Server. The Rengar doing everything they can, losing so much health from the poke, and Riven has found them. They've been caught by the Infernal Chains. The flash comes out. Harold has flagged and dragged out. It's now Maza and Sebula carrying the dragon. Riven has jumped back in. Harold with another flag and drag back in. Super Server has run. The Elder Dragon has gone down very, very soon. But in all principles, it has gone down to Altrisham as they look to really dominantly close out this game.
It's been a brilliant performance overall. There's been some huge plays back out of Newcastle and Stafford. They've really put up a fight, but with the Elder buff down, you can turn this into a very easy Baron because these team fights just don't go your way at this point as Newcastle and Stafford. I feel like it's worth highlighting in that last team fight that the Momo Gods could have had 3 members on the pot bottom, but there were 2 different stopwatches / Zonias that went down, meant that that just didn't land the damage. The CC isn't there. And the team fight from that point is pretty much won for Altrincham. They can push onto this Baron pretty easily. They're stepping around it slowly, which isn't always a good idea. Elder buff doesn't have the longest timer on it. Now they step up to try to take onto this Baron. A steal would be huge for EUNE Super Server, but may just be delaying the inevitable.
Has found Sebula, forcing the flash out there. A lot of damage coming down. But the Baron is going down oh so fast as well. 5,000 health now and ticking down further and further. Harold looking for something. The Smite managed to secure it. The True Shot Barrage not quite enough. That is 2 big objectives.
Look at the Yuumi. There's a
No.
Yuumi. There's a
Yuumi holding bot lane.
There is a Yuumi holding a lane, which is something you don't tend to see, but somebody has to do it, and sometimes it is just the Yuumi support as the engage goes through. In case you don't know, that white buff on with his health bar, that white line on with his health bar is the point at which they get executed. Get them below that amount of health, and they just pop, so it makes team fighting incredibly easy, but that buff isn't going to be around for that much longer, as the Baron Empowered minions pour into the base. A last stand needs to come through right now for Newcastle and Stafford if they want any hope of getting into the finals.
That it does, and you see 4 people strong in this mid lane. From both sides, Riven pushing this bot lane with the Baron this time is going to really melt through. We're looking for any kind of catch, any kind of fight will spell disaster for Newcastle and Stafford College. So the bot lane tower will go down. The inhib has been opened up. And now we're moving towards the top lane, really confining the space that NSCG have to play this game to their base and their base alone. Everybody rotating to Riven now. Not really thinking too much about defending this top lane. The Elder buff has worn off.
TP gonna come through just to be able to get Asian buff back to this one to stop the push from coming through. And to be honest, it's been good play out of Newcastle and Stafford to just not fight for that entire duration of the Elder buff. They had to concede a Baron for it, but off of the Baron buff so far, they haven't lost that much. Couple of outer turrets, 1 inhibitor turret, but not the end of the world. There's been a lot of good play to just not get over aggressive. A lot of teams in this situation see how far they are behind and think that they just have to pull the trigger, have to find a fight somewhere, go, go, go. Against an Elder buff, you simply do not win those, so well done on them to not try to find a fight in a situation they were never going to win, but still, this game is in absolutely dire straits. 10,000 gold behind is sort of the barrier at which, once you're past that point, you barely ever come back into the games, but still, there is always the possibility, if you hit a massive Pot Blossom, if you're able to get that unstoppable force onto multiple members as well, then you can just burst out members of Altrincham. It's tricky though, but talking of tricky, so is pushing onto these turrets right now. Even with the Baron buff, the base defense has still been pretty good.
It has, and despite the lack of wave clear as well, there isn't really a huge amount of wave clear on the side of Newcastle Stafford. As now we see a good bit of poke coming out, but still not huge amounts of damage from this Ezreal. 3 items, you'd normally be online at this point. As now EONE Super Server has jumped forward, and the Unstoppable Force lands onto 2, but it's solo. There's nobody there to back it up, and now the quickness comes out, catches onto 1, and a fight has started. Momo manages to catch 3 with the Pop Blossom, but the Zhonya's is just enough. The flash comes through from Jin, and that's 1 dead already. It's a 1-for-1, and a second will fall to Jin, and now Wavia. A third will fall, a fourth will fall. Quadra kill for the Xayah. This fight, and now EONE Super Server left to defend their base alone against the entirety of AGSB, as 1 inhib will go down and a second soon to follow.
Oh, no pentakill, which is unfortunate. EONE Super Server able to find himself the only unwarded bush in that bottom side. Nexus turrets do continue to fall, a second inhibitor as well. This game is over, unfortunately. 10 seconds until Wither is going to be back alive. EONE Super Server can do nothing. They have to just sit and watch as their Nexus falls, and Altrincham Grammar School will go on to our finals.
A beautifully played game from Altrincham there. Newcastle, Stafford tried their best, but it wasn't quite enough. Ultimately, a very well played game from both sides. There were moments of hope, there were sparks of life, but it just wasn't quite enough. What are your thoughts on that game?
Multiple team fights where it felt like if you weren't down by that chunk of gold you were already in the early game, Newcastle and Stafford could have found ways back into that game. I think Momo deserves a lot of praise. Some of those Pop Blossoms were huge, but when you're so far ahead in gold, you're able to spend that extra 650 to grab yourself a stopwatch. You're able to get a full Zhonya's if you want one as well, and it means that that Pop Blossom just has that much less actual ability to be useful in a team fight. Still was landing it onto multiple members. We saw the one team fight where they were still relatively even and it was hit onto 3 or 4. You managed to win out on that fight. Newcastle and Stafford should be very happy with themselves. Quarterfinals is a huge achievement, and to have gotten this far, to have done so well in their group stage as well, big congratulations. But obviously, the elephants in the room, Altrincham Grammar School are looking just incredibly strong. That top lane was disgusting, and if we see that in the finals as well, it can be pretty hard to overcome a top lane that just wins that hard, because it can snowball into the rest of the map so very easily.
Absolutely can, but we are going to throw to a quick break. When we come back, we'll be here for the finals of the Winter Showdown. Don't go anywhere, it's going to be a good one. Welcome back, everybody, as our finals for the day is one of the teams we just saw vying for the win, Altrincham Grammar School, up against 6th Form College Farnborough, who just won out in their semi-final just now, as we are into Champion Select. We'll see what the options are. Altrincham opting to stay on the blue side as a Fiddlesticks ban is the first ban that comes through.
Yeah, interesting. I expect once again we're going to be seeing pretty targeted bans. Getting Riven banned away from somebody named Riven tends to be a pretty good idea, let's be honest, although the Aatrox that we saw from the last game was incredibly strong, so that is always a potential as well to take off of the board. We'll see what these remaining bans are going to be, if they're still just going to be more target in general. Apparently, 6th Form College Farnborough are incredibly strong too, so hopefully this will be a little bit closer of a matchup between these two teams.
We'll have to see. The Draven ban coming through shows great strength. And the Kai'Sa in return. So looking pretty standard for now, taking away power picks or things that the enemy plays a lot of. Do we think we're going to see a similar draft to last game for Altrincham?
I would expect so. It seems like they are quite comfortable playing the more standard competitive style of composition, and if you can play that style, there's a reason that it is played by all of the top players in the world. It's because it is just a good way of playing League of Legends. It covers its bases on terms of what you've got for damage profile, for engage, for disengage. All of those things are well covered when you play the more standard tournament style of draft pick, but you know, not necessarily if they have something completely crazy that they could pull out. I don't know what the style out of Farnborough is going to be though, if they have a more standard style as well, or if they want to go more towards the solo queue look.
4 AD carry bans in this first rotation. Really pinching that pool a little bit more than other lanes. We are on to first pick.
Jarvan?
We'll see. Could be Jarvan.
It's always good as one of those first pickups that you can get for yourself. Instead, gonna go for the Rakan. Now that usually forces your enemies into a situation where they kind of have to pick the Xayah unless they want to give away a seriously strong bot lane. Depends on, of course, if your AD carry does play the Xayah. If not, you're giving over a very strong potential bot lane, and I could see the first 3 picks being exactly the same if they can get it. The Rakan, the Xayah, and the Jarvan, they're some of the strongest pickups that you can get for yourself. It gives you a really solid base to work off of.
Absolutely does. As we see the Thresh counter coming through. Not one of the best counters in the world, but does do the job with the Flay, and pairing it up with the Jinx, this lane works very similarly to a Felios Thresh, where you're just looking to play Lantern Buddy and protect this hyper carry at all costs. Now, picking the Xayah here could be very dangerous. Xayah does not scale as well as a Jinx. You do have to look to try and get some kind of early lead on the Xayah to be able to match this hyper carry, but we'll see what Altrincham opts to go for.
There's a reason that you take the Rakan before you take the Xayah when you are looking to split them across, simply because Xayah and Rakan is usually the better bit. They do pick up the Jarvan, but are potentially looking to go for something different. Samira would be an incredibly aggressive pick, comes online significantly earlier than the Jinx. Most pickups actually come online a lot quicker than the Jinx does, so we'll see what this final lock-in is going to be. It will just be the Xayah. Like you said, it doesn't scale as well, but when you've got the Jarvan, you have the ability to just gank a lot early, try to get yourselves into an early lead, because Xayah comes online once you've completed those 2 items, whereas Jinx looking for 3, 4, and at that point she can start absolutely rolling.
Absolutely can. Looks like we could just see a bit of a salty, not even a salty run back, but a picture-perfect draft for last game for Altrincham. The Ornn on 3 shows that you're looking to just survive the top lane, maybe ban away a couple of the strength picks. There goes the Garen. We saw the Darius taken away last game as well. So we'll have to see how this goes.
You've spec'd yourself really hard right here as Farnborough into going late game. Thresh is good at pretty much every stage in the game. You're always a Lantern and a Hook, but Jinx, Ornn, they're looking to scale into the late game. Ornn gives you so much late game scaling through those ornaments. You get 1,100 or so gold worth of effective extra stats by having those ornaments come through, and that's a level that your opponents simply cannot get to. So once you get into the late stages of this game, post 30 or so minutes, that's the point at which, you've got to be really careful about Farnborough. But until that point, you are going to prefer to have a Jarvan and a Zyra and a Khan. They're going to be able to come online a lot earlier on, make fighting around these early objectives, the Drake specifically, that much stronger. Now, we saw that Riven in the last game was able to be that bridge player. There is a potential to do that again. It is going to be the Yasuo banned away as the second ban out of Farnborough. Still does have that Aatrox. If you just wanted to run back the exact same composition, you could potentially do so, and it might even be better in this situation, simply because you have spec'd so hard into the late game scaling as Farnborough.
Absolutely could be. We'll have to see what the pickup is here. Could stunt the Orianna Aatrox in its tracks, but Aatrox, as you mentioned, still pretty good here. Has a nice time into the Ornn, same reason it has a nice time into the Malphite. You just kind of get to sit there, do your own thing. The Taliyah comes out for Farnborough, not something we see very often.
It's going to be likely in the jungle, although it is technically a flex pick between jungle and mid lane. It does give you a little bit of extra flexibility as we go into the later bit of this draft. See what the pickup is going to be mid lane. It was the Orianna last time around. It works really well with this combo. Although there were a couple of missed shockwaves, there is a potential here for Sebula to be able to pull it back. And actually Sebula ended up dealing more than enough damage overall with it. Instead, going to go towards the Syndra. I think the Syndra is better individually. It doesn't work quite as well in tandem with the rest of the composition. The Syndra does also scale incredibly well. Once you get those 100 shards, you can execute people. And it gives you so much pressure onto things like Taliyah or Jinx, who you can just 100-0. You still need this top lane though. See what it is going to be. You know it's into an Ornn, and it will be the Nasus, so all of a sudden Syndra Nasus, they do scale really well. So you've got an early bridge of the Zyra Khan Jarvan, looking to get your Syndra Nasus into the late game. Choosing to go late though versus a Jinx and Ornn is not necessarily a good idea.
No, I definitely can have
Nasus is a placeholder. That makes more sense.
Okay, good to know. As we see, as soon as we know what champion that is, we will let you
Cassante.
know.
I think it's Cassante.
Cassante. Ah. Did you find that out before I did?
Put in one of the chats, wasn't it?
Was it? No. Oh, but I'm seeing anyway. Anyway, Cassante gives you a bit more of room to work with, but the Syndra was banned away from Sebula last game in favor of the Orianna, which is just objectively a stronger pick at the moment, the most broken mid laner in the game. So Sebula's Syndra might be pretty damn good.
Yeah, it might be. I mean, I love seeing the Syndra at the moment. You have such, just overall, a good profile of champion. You can get into the late game and go toe-to-toe with things like a Jinx and a Gangplank, but at the same time, even in the early game, you can still give a lot to your Jarvan. Orianna doesn't really give anything to a gank pre-level 6, whereas that Scatter the Weak is huge, and I've seen multiple games recently where Scatter the Weaks have just been the thing that won it. In fact, I think it was something we were casting on Monday, where Scatter the Weaks just won the game. You weren't able to step up, and that can really harm any composition that wants to go all in. That isn't necessarily what Farnborough have drafted themselves. They don't actually want to go flying into the backline into the same way that Syndra can help out with, but still, that Scatter the Weak is going to be massive, and around team fights in enclosed spaces, if you can't step up for them, it makes it really tricky.
Absolutely does. Now, I do apologise, as I'm sure you heard, there was a doorbell there, so I'm going to ask you one final question. I have to go and see on that. What do you want to see for this game? And I'll be back in 2 seconds. I do apologise.
Okay. So, Jarvan needs to gank early. We said it already. If you have been watching that previous game, you know, Jarvan just needs to be getting as much done early as possible. 2 ganks in the early game is brilliant. Cassante is less of a threat than an Aatrox, but still, if you can get a Cassante rolling, that could be absolutely excellent. And versus something like an Ornn, you can really make them sweat, where they just don't really get to step up, don't get to do anything really. Ornn likes to sit in lane for as long as possible because of the ornaments. If you are constantly pushing them back into base, that can just give you an extra level of pressure over the top of an Ornn. Mid lane, that should be relatively even. Don't expect to see too many early ganks. Welcome back. So basically what I'm saying is I would like to see the Jarvan gank a lot, whereas Taliyah is much happier to sit back and just try to relax as you get into the later stages of the game.
Definitely going to be interesting to see. Now, we shouldn't be too far out of game now. So, one final question. Who's taking the title Who is
Who's
taking
the title? Okay, that's a pretty tricky question, but looking at these compositions, I do think Altrincham have shown in the previous game that they know how to get themselves a lead. And they have a composition that can do really well with a lead. At the same time, that late game scaling is pretty insane out of Farnborough, but I haven't seen them yet, so I think I'm going to have to go with Altrincham simply because I know what they like to play. I know that they have got those really strong champions as well, but I don't know.
Right, well, it seems we are a little bit further out of game than initially anticipated, so instead of rambling and trying to fill the time, we are going to throw to a very quick break, but as soon as we are back, we'll be on the Rift for the finals of the Winter Showdown 2023. Don't go anywhere. Back soon. And we are back and into the finals. Altrincham versus Farnborough sixth form, playing for their titles. Seems there is a gangplank
It is
in mid
actually
lane.
a Gangplank. I was expecting that to be a proxy, but it is not right here. Very interesting. So, Gangplank into Syndra is pretty decent because you don't suffer quite as badly from the issue of constantly getting poked out. You can poke back with the barrels relatively effectively. You can use the oranges to get away from potential stuns. As a 2-2. Another jump.
Does have
Yeah.
the grand entrance. The hook goes slightly wide. So level 1 shenanigan has been stopped in its track.
So, what is the early pathing going to be? Because last game, Harold Knight knew exactly what his job was. Going to 3-camp to gank up towards the Aatrox, get Riven ahead, and just got rolling. This time, don't know if we're going to see the same thing. Instead, going to be starting towards the top side of the map. Now, you can gank early onto a Zyra Khan. The ground entrance does give you that level of CC that you need. Draven obviously brings good CC to the ganks himself. But still, it's pretty risky, especially versus a Thresh who can hook to stop, flay you away, has the Lantern to just try to keep their AD carry safe. So, not necessarily going to be the place that you really want to be going towards. Instead, it may just end up being an early full clear. Try to just get yourself into a good position. The Taliyah, unlikely to want to gank too early on. You're really looking to get yourself to those first couple of items. Level 6 is the point at which you can really come online. Not necessarily just through the level 6, but just because that's a good point to have a couple of components needed for the Taliyah to really deal any damage that you need to be worried about.
As a flash comes forward, it wasn't even a flash, it was a good hook, and Mazatutu will fall. First blood going over to MLK in the bot line.
And giving over that level 2 initially is just so huge. Getting level 2 first, and Reese knows that he could just walk up all the way, gets the flay, and just a straight up early kill. Giving first blood over to a Jinx is really, really bad. That's exactly what you don't want to do. Zyra Khan, they do not scale as well as a Jinx. So if the Jinx gets ahead early, then you negate a lot of that early pressure that you would otherwise have. Farnborough going to be happy with that early start. And it is not going to be a full clear. It is instead going to be another 3-camp clear coming out from this Jarvan. Might just turn it back, pick up some chickens or the Krugs, because there's no real lanes to gank right now.
Wanted to look towards that bot lane. Unfortunately, the first blood really puts a bit of a nail in that plan. So now, we just wait and see how the game does go. It's not really much setup across the map for this Taliyah. Not easy setup anyway, so early ganks are, as you mentioned, likely off the table. Interested to see what Reese is looking to do here, though.
Yeah, he's kind of just sat up here, potentially looking for a gank. Does spot out a ward. You now know that this bot lane Scottercrab is around. Not sure if you're going to be able to stop this Jarvan from taking it though. Harold Knight is just going to be able to step up onto this one, but you are at least aware of what's going on. River now potentially going to be ganked.
Basat is up in this top lane. Riven just walking away for now. Seismic Shove is blocked by the Unstoppable. Well, the stun does still go through. It's not quite enough damage there to kill just yet.
Still, decent chunk of damage done onto Riven right now. That is going to mean K-Skull gets a little bit of a chiller lane, although you still aren't going to be as scared as a Cassante as you are of something like the Aatrox that we saw in the previous game. Ornn just being able to sit in a lane is exactly what he wants to do. And the scaling really is on the side of Farnborough. We cannot emphasize this enough, and so this early game, not going incredibly strongly in the favor of Altrincham, is pretty much disaster. You need to find some early ganks, early success. So far, Harold Knight hasn't been able to find any. Is just going to go back to base, pick himself up a Kindle Gem. Is now going to have his abilities up a little bit more often, a little bit more health as well. It is good on the Jarvan, but he needs to start finding ganks. Potentially going to look for top lane right now. There are plenty of wards though. As bot lane, oh no.
A lot of damage coming down from Mazatutu. Flash coming forward. Flash in response. A lot of feathers down, but no Blade Caller just yet. And despite not taking the hook or the Fate Mazatutu just being bashed down slowly, having no battle dance to move to safety, really proving to be a problem in this lane.
Really is, and this Jinx, just a lot of confidence actually coming through out of King. Perfectly happy to step up and just be aggressive, and you're not really worried about Mazatutu coming in with that grand entrance because it just hasn't shown that they have the damage as a bot lane to actually be able to do that. Instead, getting pushed in underneath the turret, Harold Knight is in the area, could potentially look for a gank, but a good ward in the river is going to spot him out, so should be able to back off, keep their lead going, and keep themselves in a nice spot. Where Fawcett could go top lane right now. There is no ward to spot him out. Possibly repeat gank onto the top lane. Is going to go for it. Riven does still have flash, though.
Meanwhile, in the bot lane, the 2-2 looking for something. Can't quite find the knock-up. Still no battle dance to safety as the hook lands, and Reese will take that kill for themselves. And now Martin Luther King has the excited running through their veins. Oh, Riven's back is cancelled, and there's the knock-up. Not quite enough damage, and the Molten Pillar will kill. That is 3 kills to nothing on the side of Farnborough.
Yeah, that was a really well executed dive up in the top lane, and on the bot side, just over aggression. Really felt like a little bit of a panic play out of Harold Knight. Jhin and Mazatutu have been getting pushed in, not having a good time in the spot lane, and it felt like he wanted to get a couple of kills, try to get something going, but Reese managing to land that death sentence, and it truly was its namesake, getting another kill onto Mazatutu, who on the Rakan in the last game did get caught out of position a couple of times. Might potentially be an overall problem because we're seeing it rear its ugly head in this game too. Now, we haven't had any Drakes go down. There is an Infernal Drake, a good single Drake to pick yourself up if you are in the area, potentially. But there's no real rush right now out of Farnborough. They are in a good enough position to just relax, not overpress, and potentially throw away their advantage to a team who really needs to get things going early on.
Slowly but surely wins the race, as it were. And that is definitely the name of the game for Farnborough this game. As first Dragon is up, first Herald coming up very soon. Do you expect to see any really big fights happen in the near future?
Not unless we go around this Drake. I mean, there could be potentially another dive top lane if you just want to keep this top lane spiraling out of control, and bot lane individually maybe finding for some fights, but not necessarily. Now, you do have that level 6 out of Brody Fox, which is huge. Once you've got that Gangplank ultimate, it can swing team fights, and possibly even just dissuade them from happening. As we see these mid laners dueling back and forth, no real CS leads coming through. To be honest, these CS leads are not massive anywhere overall. There's a little bit of a one bot lane, a little bit top jungle, but nothing that is completely out of control so far. Still, all 3 of those that I did mention are in the favour of Farnborough, which is contributing to this 2 and a bit K gold lead.
2,700, I believe, is the final number. As
Look at you being good at math.
It's subtraction. It's not impressive.
It is if
Dragon is going across the Farnborough though.
Yeah, it looks like this one going to be picked up as well. And Farnborough really are getting a king's ransom of this game. No lane really going in their favour. Brody Fox gets ganked. Finally a gank coming through. Ultimate not going to kill though out of Sebula.
And there comes the Weaver's Walls. And the kill goes over the weapon set. And there's a bot lane here as well.
Oh, the
Harold
stun!
caught by the Flame Chomp. It's a double kill for the Talia. Farnborough playing it beautifully. And this is a far cry from what we saw last game.
So maybe Group B was stronger than Group A, because Farnborough actually didn't come through completely undefeated. They had lost a game, whereas Altrincham didn't. They were completely undefeated up until this game. Of course, there's still plenty of League of Legends to be played, but we're at a point where there's a 4k gold lead. First Drake goes over, the kills are exactly where you want them to be as well. You've got one onto your Jinx, you've got one onto your Talia as well. Everything just going in the favour of Farnborough. If they can keep this pace up with a composition that outscales the opponents, there's very little counterplay that you can actually get going. There is really good teamfight potential out of Altrincham, but they have to get themselves to a point where they're in these teamfights not massively far behind. Early items have only come through right now for K-Skull, so you're not in the worst position if you were to pick a fight right now. But what are you fighting over? The Herald? I mean, Harold Knight is bot lane. He's nowhere nearby, whereas Wet Fawcett has already started... Oh, I thought already started up. Actually hasn't. Is instead potentially looking mid lane alongside Reese.
All it takes is one good flay. There it is. The stun comes through.
And
The
the
box
box.
goes down. Harold trying to dissuade, but Sebula ignited, autoed down by Reese. Does just manage to live, but the hook lands onto Harold, and it's cancelled by the seismic shove. Mazatutu here just to save, and the Jinx rocket goes wide as well. No casualties, despite the beautiful play.
Yeah, really good play right there. Reese getting super aggressive, actually dealing more damage in that team fight potentially, as bot lane, the play! The Jinx!
And suddenly we see why Xayah is so much better for these early stages. The feathers can do so much, and Martin losing so much health to that Blade Caller will give over a solo kill to Jhin.
Giving over the solo kill there is just terrible. I mean, still 20 CS up, got that first blood, so you've not put yourself out of this play, but you are giving a way for Jhin to get back into the game. Xayah is so good early, that Blade Caller. The fact that you can add some stuns and some CC that also deals a ton of damage. Of course, the Jinx does also have the Flame Chompers for CC, but they don't deal any damage. Whereas when you pull those feathers back, you can absolutely shred whatever is in front of you. And the fact that that mid lane play didn't result in any kills, despite the fact that Reese was absolutely popping off, means that it is just a good sequence out of Outrage, but they're going to need more of those if they want to claw back this gold lead.
Absolutely will, as we see Riven and K-Skull just bashing each other in this top lane. Full item completed for the Ornn. Just a sheen for the Cassandra.
Yeah, you're not that far ahead, but at the same time, Ornn is always going to be up in items because he can sit in the lane, build them for himself. If Riven doesn't want to fall massively behind in CS, they have to stick in the lane, match it up. It means that you're not going to be able to get solo kills. You're not going to be able to be that big carry that we saw out of Riven in the previous game.
Casually two wards on top of each other. Mazatutu having a bit of a payday there.
Yeah, gonna be happy with that one. Both for the ward score and the gold, like you said. Gonna pick up another one, and so despite the fact there was quite a lot of vision for Farnborough towards this bottom side of the map, a lot of that is gonna be cleared out right now. We've not got another Drake for a couple of minutes, but there is a Rift Herald to potentially fight over. Both junglers are in the area. K-Skull would be able to roam down first, although Sebula has also made his way up.
See how this fight plays out. Wetset just going to be able to take the objective. Altrisham not opting to take that fight. Seems a little bit too far-fetched for their liking.
Alright.
So we are just going to go back into another lull state.
Hang on, you say that.
Oh, never mind, there is a Weaver's Wall mid lane. The seismic shove
huge.
will land. Half the health of Sebula's gone, and Brody Fox will get on the board with their first kill of the game.
Really nice seismic shove. Those have actually been incredibly well placed so far,
Harold
although
has found the double knock-up. The Cataclysm comes down, and Wetset's already there. Brody Fox now fighting. Harold ignited, ticking down to burn, ticking down to the true damage, and one final shot, kaboom!
Oh, the super mega
Jinx
death rocket
blocked as well.
doesn't hit, otherwise Mazatutu would have gone down, but still that Herald has gone into the mid lane as well. That's a ton of turret plates onto Brody Fox too. He's getting a massive payday for himself on that recall. Should have the fully completed item as well. And the turret plating gold is going to be a huge amount as Jhin going to have to pop the ulti. Reese forced to flash, but still, Jhin losing out on that ultimate is huge for the next potential engage with the Drake spawned as well. In an upcoming team fight, not having that Feather Storm is going to be huge.
Certainly is. Gonna have to see how that is navigated, and the comedic effect of the kaboom coming right as the Jinx rocket went off. It's a good day. It's a very good day.
Very good day. Enjoy that quite a lot, as I guess it would have been funny if the Jinx rocket had have actually landed. It was a good block out of Jhin to keep his support alive right here. The Lovers duo not having the best time of it in this bot lane, down by a good chunk of CS, and overall the CS leads are certainly in the favour of Farnborough. They've come into this game incredibly strong. They want to lift this British Esports Championship title for themselves.
Absolutely do. Remember, this is the finals, guys. Winning here gives you that Winter Showdown title. As now Reese looking towards the mid lane, finds the hook onto Harold. Mazatutu has gone in, catches two with the quickness. Now Sebula trying to get some damage down.
The seismic shove!
The seismic shove onto Harold, and it's two deaths. Double kill for Brody Fox. This gangplank is swimming in gold, while his opponents are swimming with the sharks as he was. Another death sentence lands onto Sebula, and there comes the seismic shove, and Reese will grab that kill. It's three very quick kills.
Oh, Wetset really is just on point with these seismic shoves. Same thing with Reese on those death sentences. And bot lane, King's perfectly happy to just push down this turret, pick it up for themselves. Now has to get excited. Jhin does not have an ultimate, does have flash, and Ghost might have to blow either of those right now. Okay, not in the end. Although this Jigs is so strong. Just stood there in the face of multiple opponents, perfectly happy to just keep dealing with damage. But like you said, the Jigs actually doesn't need to be the main carry in this game, because there's a Gangplank with an already fully completed item and well on the way to a second one.
Certainly getting very, very close to that mythic item. Or, no. In fact, looking like a collector with the Dirk and 2 crit cloaks in inventory. Looking to go collect a second item for this Gangplank, and it just is going to increase that damage by tenfold. Sitting on first item for everybody bar Mazatutu in this game.
It's a pretty good point to be in right now if you are Farnborough. Not ideal for Altrincham. They needed to get ahead early with this composition that they drafted. A composition very similar to what we had in the last game, which was so effective as Sebula trying to kill onto Brody Fox. Don't think they're going to have that 100 stacks on the shards yet though, so probably wouldn't have the damage to get 100 to 0 as Riven now going to be the next target. Let's see where the Seismic Shove goes.
Those get blocked. But it does mean that you can look to force a dive, not having that unstoppable EV vulnerable. As now, Brody taking a lot of damage. But the Cure Scurvy will keep them safe for now, as that is, from the animation, the first Cannon Barrage upgrade coming through on next base.
Oh, that's a terrifying point to be at, because the Cannon Barrage just does so much, although Brody misses the barrels. Still stepping up though.
Sebula misses everything else. The Cannon Barrage comes down, and that's only going to get scarier with the Death's Daughter.
Oh man. This Gangplank kind of hurts, huh?
Yeah. This Gangplank probably has 2 items now.
Yeah, this should be a base for another fully completed item coming through. Doesn't even need to hit the barrel chain. That's the most terrifying thing. You're just basically getting walked down with Qs, which, you know, sucks. It hurts quite badly, but it's been brilliant play out of Brody Fox. It's been brilliant play actually out of all of Farnborough, looking to pick themselves up the title right now. Good wards around the topside jungle for Altrincham means that they're going to be able to spot out as this upcoming Rift Herald spawns in just about 50 seconds time. All of the objectives so far have gone well in the favour of Farnborough, and if they can keep that up, kind of just choke everybody from Altrincham out. Make sure that they don't get to step up at any real point and find a foothold to get back into this game.
The buy has come through for Brody Fox, making it that much harder. The Death's Daughter ready and waiting. Dropping that on somebody's head makes life extremely difficult. Now Harold caught between a rock and a Death Warden. The hook lands, and Harold trying to do everything they can to escape. The Blast Cone will do something, and Riven is now here, and Sebula is now here, and the scatter hits too. Wetfset having to flash away, but doesn't die. Reese now in the middle of everybody, and there is the Orn Horn. Doesn't quite catch onto any. Catches Harold, and now Wetfset goes down. Riven doing everything they can, and LK has now gotten excited. Mazatutu running away with their life, and the rocket comes through, lands onto all 3 members, and there is the Cannon Barrage.
Oh,
doesn't quite kill.
That's flash off of King, not ideal. Sebula just gonna survive right there. I think that might actually have been 1 HP, although on the backside of this play, other than dropping that Cannon Barrage, Brody Fox has just pushed through the bot lane, picked himself up an inner tower, looking to get onto this inhibitor one as well. We'll have everybody pretty much from Altrincham running at him, so just going to disengage, and well executed play overall. Turrets galore falling, as well as this Rift Herald, just to pick up whichever other turret decides to stand in the way of Farnborough. They are in such a dominant position, 10,000 gold ahead right now, 2 Drakes up, all of the Rift Heralds claimed as well, and the next Drake spawning in less than a minute's time.
Max, we've hit critical mass.
Yeah.
The 10,000 gold lead, the 2 item Gangplank.
Already.
It's gonna be hard.
Already. 2 items on the Jinx as well. Got that Kraken as well as the Eye Edge completed, and you already saw how much damage the Jinx could do. 100 to 0ing whoever's in front of her pretty much. And once you get that first kill, which is pretty easy to do, to be fair, when you've got a Gangplank and a Talia who seems to not be able to miss seismic shoves, get excited, you could just run through these team fights. Drake gonna be spawning in under 10 seconds time. You can see there is a response out of everybody from Altrincham. K-Skull is top lane, doesn't quite have the teleport available, so it would be a 4v5 potentially, but that's if Altrincham decide to actually step up and try to contest.
And they will. Sebula already dead.
Oh, okay, King's going to keep being able to run this one forwards. Disengage trying to come through.
There comes the Weaver's wall, and now everybody is cut off. That is Mazatutu dead, and now Riven doing everything they can, goes all out, but will fall. Brody Fox is godlike on the Pirate Captain.
Oh, one more kill to Legendary, and as if to insult to injury, there is going to be a Rift Herald still available to push forward onto these turrets. I don't think it's even going to have to charge onto that turret. Indeed, it doesn't. Now going to be able to go onto this inhibitor turret as well. This is an interesting Baron take.
It definitely is. And now Jin, oh my lord, the barrel. And there comes the Mega Death Rocket. Now Harold is onto both of them. That is one death already. And now Harold will fall in return.
It's going to be a shutdown.
Now left will get shut down by Sebula.
1,000 gold.
1,000 gold payday.
As
Baron
the
will just die.
Slowest Baron take comes through, but it is going to be completed. You don't manage to get it onto Brody Fox or King.
Onto Wet for set. There's the ultimate, not quite enough damage, and now K-Skull can force Sebula back.
3 Baron buffs and a cracked base as well is going to be huge. You don't have it onto a couple of key members, but still. The more important thing about that series of plays is an 1,000 gold shutdown onto Sebula. Now, we saw Sebula have a pretty good game on the Orianna last time around. A couple of missed shockwaves, but some great damage being laid down as well. 1,000 gold is huge. Going to be a second completed item. It will be that Zhonya's. There's a lot to Zhonya's, to be fair. If you have a couple of barrels coming right at your face, if there is a seismic shove, being able to just say no to those. Shh, hush, hush, hush. We're talking about ways that this can go well for Altrincham. Okay, we have to admit that there is 3 items on the gang. The collector is insanely strong,
terrifying.
And to add a little bit extra, it's level 14 for K-Skull. That is ornaments coming through right here. It's Christmas time. Orn gonna be putting all of these onto the tree, and it already. Brody.
Sebula finding Brody.
Needs to be
Harold
careful.
doesn't quite come
Harold's
down.
here.
Harold will come in. There is the Cataclysm. Sebula will find
dead.
the ult, and Harold will pick up the kill onto Brody. And now Wet for set is up on the list. Mazatutu finding the CC needed. Not quite enough damage to kill. And Riven trying to defend their top lane inner. As the hook comes down, and they're being melted through by this Jinx. Knockup goes wide, and now Sebula's here. The scatter doesn't land either.
Jin,
Now
no.
Jin doing so much damage with Deadly Plumage. The
Oh,
flash from
no.
Sebula, but catches the wall, and the Weaver's wall is there as well. Death Rocket doesn't quite land, nor does the Zap Zap. And now Wet Set is here as well. Riven going so low. Jin going so low, and everybody gets out with their lives, and it's not the first time this has happened. Mazatutu looking for Wet Set looking for the flank. Mazatutu finds it, and the stun lands, and that is another dead. It's a 1-4-1.
Oh boy, and there's just so much available damage right here. Reese was playing with really fancy feet as well to keep himself alive in that situation. And it feels like the fighting just does not stop. Still though, K-Skull has got caught a little bit out of position.
It's
So
next
tanky.
on the list. It's so tanky, but there's so much damage coming out of this Xayah. Has 2 items now, so there's no way to escape. Shut down by Harold.
Not ideal, you would
well-
rather that shutdown went to Jin, but still, it's a
Well,
shutdown,
yeah.
it's a kill.
But we have to say, you mentioned it once already, the Primordial Dawn completed for K-Skull, and the Leandri's Lament for Wet for set. It's not going to be long before we get Shadow Carver, before we get Edge of Finality coming through.
Yeah, it's gonna be so many items that just shred. You get almost 1,000, over 1,000 gold worth of effective stats off of these that you just don't have access to right now as Outrim. That's why their composition needed to get rolling early. The hook does miss. Zap Zap does land, but Mazatutu has the ability to jump away potentially here, although not if you get caught
by
like
the
that.
Seismic shove, so close to dead, and
Burns.
tick tick burn. Now MLK stepping way too far forward, gets caught by the Cataclysm, but the Blast Cone is there perfectly, and the rest of the team is caught away. The Cataclysm wasn't brought down, and our
Over
Harold
the
is dead.
wall.
Brody Fox is able to pick that one up for themselves. Didn't get rid of the Cataclysm, and it stopped the fight from happening. It is now a 5 versus 3. K-Skull looking for Jin, can't quite find the Riven, caught by the Flame Chompers. The hook goes wide, Sebula running for their lives. There comes the scatter, and the knockup lands onto MLK, but it's not quite enough. Jin now having to pop the Featherstorm, and there is no fight to be had. There is no dragon to be stolen as Soul comes through for Farmouth 6th form.
Farnborough are just running this game. It is going to be a responding kill. King does go down. That's another big kill right now for Sebula. Sebula really is the only available carry to try to get back into this game. Doesn't matter how slippery your Rakan is when the lockdown CC is that impressive. The gold lead has blown to 15k, and with that completed Mountain Soul, the extra bit of shielding just makes it that much harder to pick up those initial kills. Next Baron isn't spawning for 1 minute 30 seconds. Once that one's picked up though, you'd have to imagine Farnborough are going to look to end the game. Right now as Altram, do you step up for that Baron?
It'd be dangerous, especially with that Shadow Carver now completed.
Yeah. I mean, look at these items. Only one remaining ornament left to come through. Wow.
2.
I'm not counting the one on Reese. I love supports. Supports deserve everything in the world, but it's less impactful than getting the final one onto one of the main carries.
I don't know. It's a lot of tanky stats on a Locket upgrade.
No, you are right.
Harold has found Reese, but Brody is waiting in the wings.
Oh, hook lands!
Hook lands on to Harold, but the barrels just go slightly wide. This tenacity really coming in clutch there.
Yeah, Reese didn't want to actually take that death sentence. Might have been a little bit over-aggressive, and there's no reason to throw your gold lead right now. You're in such a strong position. Sure, it would take a lot of one-team fights for Farnborough to throw, but still, you don't want to give away anything if you don't have to. Baron now spawning in about 15 seconds time. You've got a push going on from K-Skull, and it seems like the members of Altram don't really know what to do. You could go bot lane, try to kill the Ornn, but he's very tanky. Oh, they've caught King, though!
They have. Sebula is on a rampage again, and now Harold looking for more web Sembries have matched up. And Mazatutu has found the engage, and so has Harold. That is Webset caught in the Cataclysm, and Mazatutu keeping the other two off. Brody Fox looking to join the fight, and will go on a killing spree, and the TP is coming in from Riven. The fight is already over. Has found Brody Fox as K-Skull just runs Jin down. There is the Ornhorn, the ram back into Sebula, and Jin just wailing away on this Ornn, and Harold Knight will fall for Wet for Set. Jin trying to do everything they can. Sebula, there comes the Featherstorm. Wet for Set very, very low. The smite comes out, and the sidestep's not quite enough. It's a double kill, and the shutdown goes to Sebula, and Riven on the backside in or out. The Sebula will fall. Brody Fox is on a rampage again.
It's a good team fight. It's a pretty good team fight considering the gold disadvantage right there out of Altram. They managed to find King out of position again. That's now the 4th time they've been caught out. A lot of deaths for an AD carry, but at the same time, the rest of the team is just so strong. You're down by so much gold at this point that it's just an item disadvantage. That being said, you will always be at a disadvantage because of the ornaments, but once you get to full items completed, you can't get any stronger. So you can begin to claw back. The gold lead begins to mean less and less the further you move past the 35-minute mark. That's still a really long way to go. That is Garen completed for Farnborough. They need to use this one to push into the base, at least get some inhibitors down, if not find that ceiling team fight to crown themselves as champions.
And that's going to be a lot easier to do than you would think. 4 items now completed on this gangplank. The LDR coming through means that this Cassante Jarvan duo going to be oh so easy to cut down.
Yeah, you need to just get right on top of them. There's so much health that should take you ages to get through, and it just is not the case. Once you've got that LDR, you can shred through basically whatever is in front of you. And Brody Fox already has the damage with that with that Duskblade and Collector to be able to burst out the squishies. Why not give yourself the ability to shred through the tanks as well? Webset possibly caught over the wall. Oh, the Scan of the Week doesn't land. Still, though.
And there is the knockup coming through. Webset going oh so low. Shut down by Jin. It's a small solace. An oh so small solace.
Is a main player right now. Oh, Harold.
Oh, half the health is gone. Caught into the Flame Jumpers. Brody Fox is unstoppable in this game as Farnborough 6th form. Really looking to end this game out. Secure the Tithe of the Winter Shroud. And a flash hook comes onto Sebula. And Sebula has to drop the stopwatch is just dead, dominating 14-2 on this gangplank. Jin, Mazatutu, and Riven, the only members left standing between Farnborough and the end of the game.
Looks like it should be the final push right now. All 3 inhibitors are exposed. You can take all 3 out, and once 3 inhibitors are down, that is a terrible place.
And that's just dead. It's a killing spree. Jin, the only DPS left, and it does have to pop the Featherstorm now. Going oh so low. Riven is dead. Jin, you're the only one left standing. As your towers fall, your base crumbles, your nexus explodes. And Farnborough 6th Form College will secure the title as Winter Showdown 2023 winners. Eventually. One day.
Once
Please,
they
guys.
stop messing with them.
Please. And there's the game.
Congratulations right there. Farnborough, 6th Form. That was incredibly impressive. That was so well played overall. You draft yourself a composition that scales into the late game. You expect to lose at least a little bit during the early game, and then you just don't. You get a solo kill bot lane. You manage to just find teamfight after teamfight. This gangplank gets 2 items completed like 15 minutes into the game. Absolutely disgusting plays from everybody, and I really have to put a lot of praise onto Reese. Those hooks were incredible the whole way through.
An insanely good performance from everybody on Farnborough's team. Commiserations go to Altrincham. They tried their best, they had a good showing in their first game of the day, but couldn't quite get the ball rolling. But that's it, that's the Winter Showdown. This was the finals. It's done.
It's done.
It's done. Very, very well played to everybody
Yes.
involved. And I will double check, but is that us done with League for the year?
I think it should be.
Yeah,
Yes.
that is us done with League for the year. Now, unless there is anything else that I need to mention, it has been a pleasure, Max. Thank you to Brad and Lottie, our behind-the-scenes crew, for today. Thank you to you all for watching. Have a happy holidays, and we'll see you in the new year.